Welcome to In Their 20s, a podcast with the best advice. My name is Landon Campbell, and I'm your host. And today we spoke with Andy Dunn, the co-founder of Bonobos, which was the first internet-driven, widely recognized DTC clothing brands in the US. Coming out of grad school, Andy got a chance to start Bonobos and serve as the CEO for over a decade. 10 years in, they were acquired by Walmart for over $300 million. So let's jump in with Andy to hear about his journey to success and advice for people in their 20s. Welcome, Andy. Super excited to have you on the show today. How you doing?
I'm really good, man. Thanks for having me. Really grateful to be here.
Yeah, and you're based in Chicago still, correct?
I am now, yeah, after 14 years in New York. We just moved here about a month ago.
Awesome, cool. I've been here since about 2016 when I started college here. Love the city. It's a lot of great opportunities, great food, great people. You grew up in Chicago. Talk to me about some of your best childhood memories when it came to growing up in Chicago, and then also if there were any early signs of entrepreneurship along your journey.
Well, I'm gonna from the jump give you something more fun than that, which is when I was 20, I actually had a really challenging onset of a mental health issue. Literally at that age, maybe, wait a second, let me try to think about this. So year 2000, I turned 21 that February, and that January ended up with a meaningful mental health issue that came out of nowhere. And I was at the time, I was in college, right? So there's lots of stuff going on, whether that's, alcohol, drugs. It's hard to parse out what's happening biochemically in someone's brain at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But in retrospect, should have taken a lot more seriously what the implications were of that. And actually, I can't say as much as I'd like to about it because I'm writing a book with Penguin Random House right now, but it's kind of on like the dark side of the entrepreneurial journey and the part that we try to, scuttle away sometimes, which are, for lack of a more diplomatic way to put it, entrepreneurs can be a little bit crazy. And frequently there's like some empirical truth to that as well. So, when I think back to that time in my life, there was a formative interplay that emerges between an individual's personality and what they end up building later. And I wasn't doing anything entrepreneurial at all. Coming out of college, I was working in consulting and private equity and some of the least entrepreneurial things in the world that you can be doing. But if I'd actually paid attention to my mental health, that would have been a moment to really, see the roots of how entrepreneurship and mental health go hand in hand. So I kicked off my 20s with the bang, and more about that soon when the book comes out.
Of course. I'm excited to receive my signed copy. But also, I think this is such a unique perspective. Entrepreneurship is just this big, sexy term that a lot of people, want to create a company. They want to work with a startup. But we don't usually talk about that dark side, where you're working these long hours and you do need to really take care of your mental health. I think that's something that we really discovered, unfortunately too late, but I think we discovered it, during the pandemic, where we really need to watch after both our physical health and mental health. Really, really important because that's how we perform better and we can become more successful. So I understand after your time at college, you lived and worked in El Salvador for a short period of time. I don't know if this had much to do with your entrepreneurship journey, but I'd love to hear, some of the experiences that you had living abroad.
I can remember sitting in class in college, and my favorite history professor was a guy named Peter Hayes. And he taught a class called The History of the Holocaust, which was one of the most desirable classes at Northwestern to take in the history department. And I remember he said how important it is at some point in your life to live somewhere entirely unlike any place that you know, and to live there on the terms of the people that live there, meaning not as a visitor, but really go and immerse. And my mom's an immigrant from a refugee town in India called Kurukshetra, so came to the US when she was 20, born on the refugee trail from Rawalpindi, Pakistan to New Delhi, India at the time of the partition. That's my mom's side. My dad's side, Scandinavian, Irish, multi-generational Americans. Both of his parents were World War II heroes, met on the European front during World War II, exchanged 1,000 love letters. So people who really came from sacrifice, whether you're talking about veterans on one side or immigrants on the other. And here I am growing up, with the cush suburban living in the suburbs of Chicago, really not connected at all to my roots in terms of the actual struggle and strife and sacrifice that the people who came before me experienced. And so El Salvador was helpful in that, at the time, and probably still is, I think the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere after Haiti. And I got invited. I had just had a tumultuous breakup with a woman I was dating. I walked into the office of my then employer, a company called Bain, and they said, would you want to take a project in San Salvador?
Mm.
And I said, yes. Where's that? I'm in. Like, get me out of here. And I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I'm going to go to take this project in San Salvador. What do you think? And being a U.S. history teacher, really well versed in geopolitics, he goes, well, Andy, I believe that's the murder capital of the Western Hemisphere. And it was one of those experiences that changes your life. I got really proximate to, a kind of poverty that is known only to countries like that. And unfortunately, parts of our country as well, but parts that I hadn't been exposed to it wasn't a white picket fence suburb, Westchester and Downers Grove, Illinois, but you get it. And so El Salvador kind of woke me up to this idea that the world as it exists is very far from the bubble that I grew up in the bubble where I spent the majority of my first 25 years, which was like, if you really think about it, suburbs of Chicago growing up, suburbs of Chicago for college at Northwestern, and then, Lincoln Park in Chicago, which is where I lived for 5 years in a couple of different roles. So El Salvador was like a jolt that there is so much more to the world. And it both provided me with perspective. It got me more connected to my mom's roots and just understanding um, her experience as an immigrant coming from an equally impoverished country like India. I think India and El Salvador are roughly comparable at the time, $2,000 or $3,000 a year per capita in income. And it got me addicted to travel. And so I said, all right, I need to see more of the world. And I spent, I think, a good chunk of the next 5 years traveling to maybe 30 or 40 other countries to try and see as much of the world as I could.
Of course, I think it's so powerful just to expose yourself to something you're so unfamiliar with. We can really get used to routine here. Seeing the same thing, surrounding yourself with the same people, eating the same food. But it is really nice to, see another area, another community that, again, you have that unfamiliarity with. And I think that as a founder and as a CEO, it's really helped shape, like what you wanted your company to be, a company for everybody. So I'd love to pivot now and discuss Bonobos. I believe you put out a quote, I believe a few years ago, that you were the least likely person that you could imagine to be the CEO of a fashion company. So what threw you into, from, your track record with private equity and finance, how did you start Bonobos?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be clear for everyone. Like, I'm a nerdy kid. Like, I was on the math team in high school. I was the captain of the scholastic bowl team, which is
Wow.
basically like, you know, trivia. Like that's kind of my roots. Nothing would have suggested CEO of a fashion company. What happened, I guess, is I just noticed stuff and I got lucky insofar as interesting stuff was happening in my life that was worth noticing. And what I mean by that was um, I gotten to spend my second year out of college working up in Dodgeville, Wisconsin, as a consultant. And I got to work on big company, Sears, at the time a storied American department store.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we've seen how that world's
Yeah.
evolved in this smaller but really cool catalog retailer called Land's End. And so I got to work on Sears coming in and acquiring Land's End because Sears could never figure out how to do clothing right.
Mm-hmm.
And this really cool catalog company out of Dodgeville had figured out for years and years and decades how to sell, great high quality clothing to Americans. And so fast forward 5 years later, I'm on my second year at Stanford for business school, 26 years old. And I had a housemate and a good friend who felt like men's pants didn't fit that well. And so the only thing that happened for me was I had a chance to notice, wait, if you can build a great apparel company via a catalog, which I know you can do because I spent, a year of my life working boots on the ground just northwest of Madison, Wisconsin, trying to help this company deal with being acquired by this monolithic Sears thing. And wait, now we're in a stage where you have, social media is taking off,
Mm-hmm.
E-commerce is taking off. We've resolved questions around like the time it was like, no one's going to buy clothing online, which probably sounds funny now, but that's what people were saying in 2006, 2007. So the only thing I had was like, wait a second, we can build this brand digitally from the beginning. And I had a housemate who built these better fitting pants. We became co-founders. Um, and that was how Bonobos was born. And what was fun about it was that there was no precedent for someone having built a brand using the internet as the primary ways of creating like a brand. Yeah, you could go out and buy Nikes online and catch a brand, catch that demand, but to create demand for something new. And now we have, I think over a couple thousand direct consumer brands that have been built in every category imaginable. And to be on the tip of the spear of that, uh, was not a fashion icon by any means, but a nerdy kid on the math team who just got lucky and got to be in a couple places and put some dots together and, get something going.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, hearing that journey, because you identified a problem, like men were having a difficult time finding pants that fit. And then also, you really utilized the trend in the internet. And a lot of people obviously did not understand how complex and, powerful the internet would be at the time, but you really connected those dots. That's really amazing. And went on, obviously, to sell Bonobos to Walmart for $310 million. I'm going to take a hunch and say that, not every part of the journey of Bonobos was probably so positive and successful. There were probably a lot of times where you underwent failure or had to find ways to bounce back and fight that uncertainty. Talk to us about how you pushed through, how you kept going, head down, focus, through the very tough times.
It was really family. I think that we in life have to do the hard work of building infrastructure around us of people that love us, who can tell us the truth. And there's this weird thing about human beings in that we tend to like to surround ourselves with people that don't tell us the truth
Mm-hmm.
when the truth is uncomfortable. And so it invites a question of like, what is a great relationship? Is it one that makes you feel good or one that frequently makes you feel bad? Because you hear things that, and I think it's a bit cliche, but I was very fortunate in that I'm surrounded by a lot of people who feel comfortable telling me exactly what they think and don't really care how I'm going to receive it. My mom, I mentioned, my sister, Monica, older sister, we've got a business together now.
Yep.
So we're still having some fun. Mentors of mine, two in particular who came in from Stanford, who were, became like business family, almost like professional family, if that makes sense. And so, I had some really rough patches in my late 20s. I got the company going when I was 28. I was dealing with massive depression, which I wasn't in touch with, even though it should have been obvious. It was so stigmatized for me anyway. Some of the cultures I come from, Indian culture, Scandinavian American culture, where you don't talk about this stuff. Of course, I'm living in New York City, which is like the therapy capital of America. I should have been more comfortable, but I just wasn't dealing with it. And suicidal ideation, feeling like I didn't ever think I would harm myself, but I just didn't want to live. And I was building something cool. And I felt so badly about feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's so normal. Right. And so I feel fortunate that I had the loved ones around me, who could over time help me, deal with a lot of the challenges I was facing. And ultimately, the biggest one being tackling the mental health issues that I alluded to at the beginning of our conversation.
Of course, yeah. We're not superheroes; we're human. I think that a lot of times, us as we feel that we can take on everything, take on the world, but we really need to be transparent with people that we're surrounded by, have those uncomfortable conversations, and I feel like there's just so much self realization within that. So I'm glad that you were able to do that, and then now you want to empower other entrepreneurs, individuals to also find that for themselves. That's really powerful. Before we close out, I do want to pivot a little bit. You grew Bonobos to such a powerful monolith company. Like I remember, when I got my first Bonobos Monday pants, which I still wear to work often. And I'm just in awe because again, it started so small. It started as a startup. What is your advice for 20 somethings when it comes to startup life? Do you think and do you encourage 20 somethings that you think more people need to give a try to start up, even if they have no idea, how the success of the company will go, or even if the company will fail. Do you encourage, whenever you have an opportunity, to 20 somethings to just dabble in startup life?
I do. I do. I would say there's a lot in your question. It's a really good question. I would say before saying, hey, you should definitely start something, I think you start with the work that helps you start something later,
Yeah.
right? Which is to, get back to that concept of living somewhere else on someone else's terms. And the reason why I bring that back up is it's very hard to control for the idea that you want to start something, right? Because like I want to start something, and I had that mentality, and turned out that didn't help me start something. It was actually my co-founder who had this issue of men's pants not fitting well, who developed better fitting pants, and I kind of like that inspired me, and then I started working on it and became the CEO of the enterprise as a function of that partnership. But what I didn't appreciate at the time was um, cultivating the conditions in your mind to notice what the opportunity is or might be is a necessary prerequisite before you can actually start something. And there's a nice quote floats around out there, which is the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed, which is to say anything that's going to happen in the future is already here somewhere in a corner, you just have to notice it.
Wow.
Right? So it's just not everywhere yet, but it's here. And I'm working on a new project right now. My next startup will be launching over the course of the next couple months quietly, and it's an opportunity that I think is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
But but it's not like new. It's something that's happening, but it's happening in a funny way, and we can talk more about it later.
Of
And
course.
so I think, and I think that you tend to notice those things when it comes from like a personal pain point that you're experiencing. So the first step is create the conditions in your mind to notice things that are currently right in front of you, a problem that you acutely are facing or someone you love is facing that no one is solving. And when you notice that, pay attention to it. Because the traditional human thing to do is be like, well, why me? Or like, okay, that's annoying. But you got to kind of flip it and say, well, why not you? If you're noticing it and there's this problem or there's this opportunity. And then, the next thing is to actually um, bet on yourself to go do it. And I think what traditionally holds us back from doing something is, fear of failure, fear of not having the money to pay the bills. These are real things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's helpful to reframe fear in a different way, which is spiritual. There's financial risk in starting something, but there's spiritual risk in not starting something too.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk to our spirit, to our very soul, to our humanity of not being engaged in doing something that we love should be at least as meaningful of a factor at the table as material world concerns. And so the beautiful thing about anyone who's listening to this is you're probably in your 20s. And most likely what that means is you're in a position to take more risk right now than you will be at any point going forward in your life. The probability is that. It may not be the case. It may be that you're in a situation right now where there's no way you can pursue your dreams because you've got to take care of X, Y, and Z, and that makes sense. But bear in mind that it's fleeting to have as few responsibilities and dependence as you do right now. And so if you do notice something in the present that feels like you're seeing something in the corner that should be everywhere, or there isn't even something in the corner, now is you have to do it now.
I love
You
that.
absolutely have to do it. You have to do it now.
Mm. I really, really appreciate your outlook on life. I'm just blown away because I'm really fortunate to be able to speak with people like you and just get so much good advice myself. I'm just really breaking down a few things you said there. You're really saying that the answers are never really out there. They're in you waiting to be discovered. I really, really appreciate that outlook. And then also just, your comments on fear. I think we need to embrace fear more. I think we need to embrace failure. It's almost a contradiction in saying this, but I think, the founders that don't embrace failure and aren't okay with failing, I think they're more likely to fail. I think you need to be more comfortable with failure, and just trying new things, and opening yourself up to something that is again waiting to be discovered. So Andy, thank you so much
As I
again.
mentioned, I have that same fear myself. I'm starting something new at the
Yeah.
moment. As mentioned, I have the same fear as I did the first time. So I think you're right. You're absolutely right. It's you don't want it to control you. You want to acknowledge it and then harness it. And hopefully it provides some fuel for motivation of, I don't just want to prove other people wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
want to prove my doubts about myself wrong. Right.
So
I
powerful.
want to take the voice in my own head that's trying to limit me and take the other voice that's saying, you know what, maybe you can do it and create a clear winner there, right?
Of course.
Create a clear winner in that narrative around your own self-esteem. And so, yeah, it's super fun to be going through that again, because it is scary, but that fear, if harnessed the right way, I think is a beautiful thing.
Got to conquer it yourself for yourself. Andy, very powerful. Thank you so much. I'm just super excited to see everything that you have coming in the future as well. Monica and Andy as well. I had a short stint that I worked at Nordstrom's while in college in the children's department. So very familiar with that
Cool.
brand. Yeah. Very popular. And of course, just the impact and everything that you're working on. Just really excited to see what you're rolling out next. And, of course, thank you again for joining my podcast. You shared so many great tips, advice, best practices that are going to really just give more 20-somethings a clearer mind about what they need to be doing today. And that's all I'm here to do.
I'm glad you're doing this work. Really, really honored to be here. And
thank you, Andy.
Thanks so much for having me.
Perfect. I'll see you around. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much for streaming our interview with Andy Dunn, the co-founder of Bonobos. If you enjoyed this interview and want more content like this, make sure to subscribe to In Their 20s wherever you enjoy your podcasts. We are everywhere. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. Wherever you want your inspirational content, we are there. Tune in for next week's episode with another very influential guest. See you soon.